yeah, so it's fascinating, right? I think I
Yeah.
told you when I stopped teaching that I wanted to spend or use my time with, playing pickleball, doing something fun because I find that fun, and creativity. And I have to say, I have been pretty good about that. So, um, yeah.
What have you been doing?
Uh, I've been playing pickleball almost every day, but I've also been working at the store because not mostly on display because let's see, when Trey and I were in market in July, one of our home suppliers, or like a company that we buy housewares from, they had a clothing line. And we were in the
Yeah.
showroom and we were walking, and there was this new showroom right next to it. And it was all these fabulous clothes. And it was mostly stuff like jackets or shawls, or it's not a whole lot of shirts, but it's like outerwear and bags and things like that. And it was a lot of, I just was like, wow, this is a new showroom. We haven't seen this before. And so Trey goes, do you like it? I go, I love it. I was like, look how cute that is. Look how cute that is. I said, I'd buy that. I said, let's go see what their minimum is, because if you
Right.
only have to buy two, I'll get what I want.
Right.
If the minimum's $200 and I can get five things, like
Right.
I'll keep one, give one, like I spend that on, that would still be a bargain, right?
Right.
So we went in, and it's a new division of this company that we buy from. And we decided to just go for it and try. We do sell it kind of goes with our theme, but we buy these robes and scarves and throws that can be used almost like a tablecloth or a shawl.
Right.
And they're made out of vintage saris. They're all handmade out of vintage saris. So that kind of goes with our vibe
Yeah.
of vintage, and and they sell like you can't even imagine. We sell robes,
Wow.
all the people love these robes. And women will come in because they're like in two or three sizes. Like there's a short one, there's a knee length one, and then there's kind of a long one. But they look great over, like, if you had, say, like a column of black, or like whatever, a color in the they're kind of patchwork, crazy patchwork.
Right.
But you could wear it, as a jacket out in the world, and people love them. They'll come in and they get, like, somebody will be like, oh, I want one for me. Oh, I'm gonna get one for my sister. Oh, my son, my best friend would like
Wow.
this. So and because, like, the shawls, or we display them as both kind of tablecloths, but also we'll put them on mannequins that, it's a
Sorry.
no, it's okay.
I
So
dropped.
anyway, we got the clothing line in, and we had also had to order display pieces for, because they're not going to just sell, if they're not displayed. So we had to put the mannequins together, and we got two clothing display racks. So we had to put those together, and then, stuff the bags so they look pretty displayed, and then, figure out, move stuff around in the store. And so I've been working 3 or 4 days.
Oh,
Went up to the store. We were just doing a little at a time. We worked for a few hours, and yeah, it's been super fun. And
yeah.
we'll see
I
what
was
happens. It's, Trey. That's the beauty about Trey being a 3'5", right?
right.
He
Try. Yeah.
he's like, oh, let's try that. That looks
Yeah.
good. He goes, I can, he likes the way they look. He was like, yeah, that would look good on you. You should get that. Yeah, let's get that. And so he's the big experimenter, which is kind of
Right.
fun.
Yeah. And while you were sharing this, I was seeing myself in his shop with you selling that stuff. I was like, I want to go work at Trey's shop.
Yeah,
To be
totally.
honest, I love it.
And then when we had the store in Arizona, I used to sell jewelry,
Yeah.
um, mostly pearl strands, or natural stones that are just on strings, natural things.
Right.
I had another line that was just cute, fun stuff that was inexpensive, but I had all those. When we first were here, we tried them and they didn't move, so we just pulled it all. So then I was like, I was going through boxes trying to find some stuff that I could accessorize. Because Trey was like, "Do you
Right.
like this jewelry line?" I was like, "Why would we buy that? I have all this stuff at home. We'll
Right.
just find the box and we'll, you know."
Yeah.
So I
So you,
did. So
you saw the stuff, right?
yeah, I had a big plastic box of stuff that I had just, saved. And so I had that bin open, and one of the ladies who works at the store and we were trying to accessorize with the different jewelry. And then I went through my jewelry cabinet and I just pulled stuff I haven't worn in years and
Right.
years, and so we layered stuff, and there were women, they were like, "Oh, where is that?"
Right. And you saw them, right?
Yeah, right there.
Wow.
I
How
started,
cool.
yeah. I think I've sold 3 strands, and we just finished the whole thing yesterday. Um and already we sold like 2 or 3 bags and 2 or 3 necklaces. So
Can you send me pictures? I would love to see it.
and it was so interesting. I went to talk to Trey after I hung it a long time ago, like 20 years ago. Um in the US, we could watch these BBC programs, and they were like home remodeling programs. But one of my favorite was, it was these two fashion executives in London, and their mission was to help save these fashion stores on small main streets in in the little towns.
Yeah.
And they were struggling to stay afloat, so they would go in and they would help them
Restyle.
revamp their store. So
Right.
I wouldn't have even known this was a thing, but one of the things they did was, most of the little stores, all the stuff was really cramped in and
Wow.
packed in, and there was
Another.
too much
Right.
merchandise. And they would teach them how to hang a rack. And so they would, and they would help them choose some new lines, and then the merchandise would come in and they'd have it hanging. And then they'd say, "Okay, here's your product. Now I want you to create a rack that'll sell." And so there's a whole science between how
Right.
about how you hang clothes on a rack and how you do the colors. I was fascinated by the show, and I would just watch and watch and watch. And so I was there, with all the merchandise, and I was like, "Okay, how am I going to hang this rack? It's going to make it, and I walked over to Trey. I said, "I used to watch that show. I wish I could remember the name of it, but they taught you how to hang a rack, in a
Right.
store. Who
And this
knew,
is your rightness. You just took it in and now you can display it. How amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of that, and I still yesterday I worked for 2 hours in the store, and then I was my friend Elizabeth had asked me to go meet her for lunch because we're leaving tomorrow to go on our
Right.
vacation to see our granddaughter for her birthday. And then when Trey gets back, Elizabeth's going to India for 2 weeks
Huh?
for a yoga retreat.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I won't see her for 5 weeks. So she was like, "Oh, let's go to lunch, before you leave and before I leave."
Right.
So we went to lunch, and we were sitting there, and normally I can just, sit and be present for, for however, because there's activity all around
Right.
me.
Right.
Like I'm just being in the power,
Right.
and so but I was so tired
Oh.
that after an hour I just said, "Elizabeth, I am falling asleep right here. I am so tired." And she started out by talking about how she was in her she Sunday, Elizabeth's a manifesting generator. She's got the big one, the what is it, the third, the one that goes from the
The
sacral
20, 57, 10, 34.
yeah, she's got the big one.
Wow.
And she's like Trey,
Yeah.
she's an energizer bunny, and so she was saying, we started off our visit by her talking about how she on Sunday just couldn't even get out of bed. It wasn't that she was sleeping, she was just down. And I said, "Oh, it sounds like you were having, because she's emotional too. I was like, it sounds like you were having an emotional, you're in your emotional low.
Right.
And we talked about that,
Was
and
that
what does
helpful
it
for her?
mean?
Was that helpful?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
she said that she had been in the head about
Why?
you know what's going on, why am I, like, why,
Right.
so she was all up in her head, and I was like, Elizabeth, your body's just saying, be
Yeah.
still,
Right. Take a break.
rest.
You're
And
right.
she goes, well, it makes sense because I'm getting ready to go on a yoga retreat for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Her body was ready. Like, let's go for the yoga retreat. Just stop now. Yeah.
So she's, and she and I had this most interesting conversation the week before about um sacral response, because I asked her, well, what are you doing today? And she was like, oh, I'm going to go do this, this, and this. And then she kind of was like,
Mhm.
and I was
You
like,
felt the no, right?
what's that about? It was like, and I have to go to Fred Meyer to get an avocado.
Right.
And I was like, do you really need that avocado?
Right.
And she was like, no, I don't need the avocado. It's not for me.
Right.
And I said, well, why did you say yes to that?
Yeah.
And she goes, I know. I said yes, and I could feel that it was a no, but I couldn't say no. And um, she goes, it's just a stupid avocado,
Yeah.
you know. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's your body
Right.
saying you're using resources that you need.
Right.
So it's not just about an avocado, it's about all the other stuff. It's about bringing the avocado to the person's house and getting hooked in
Right.
to more.
Right.
It was the phone call about the avocado and the this and the that. I'm like, it's all that energy that you're
Right.
expending on this experience that your body doesn't have
The energy for.
the energy for. It's not about you not being a good friend. It's just your body saying, no, I don't have the energy for this
Right.
right now. And so it was really cool, to have that. Um, I was like, she was talking about struggling with that. And I was like, does your body even trust you to listen anymore?
Right.
Because if you're sacral and you keep ignoring the yes or the no, whichever
Right.
one you're
Right.
overriding or bypassing, is it going to keep talking to you?
Right.
Is it going to become so dull that you can't even know?
Right.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was interesting. But then I realized by the end of when I'm saying to her, look, I'm tired. Um I need to go home. And I realized that I'm not out of my emotional low yet.
Mm-hmm. No, it can take a while. I know for me it has. Yeah.
And so I'm not at the bottom where I'm just like, I've been coming up,
Yeah.
but it's that low level energy where I just don't, and also too, I mean, I haven't worked, well, I guess I have worked back to a couple of days, 3 or 4 days at the store on the clothing, that's a lot for me.
Yeah. But it was fun, right?
So fun.
So it's good use to the energy, and you don't have the energy that your mind thinks it wants or needs to do. And maybe the beauty, what I feel in this experience is that where you would have been like there for hours, you were also able to say, I'm done. How many times do we stay in a conversation or a meeting or a call or whatever, and we, you know, I wanted to say it in Dutch. Over je grens.
Let's hear
Ja,
it.
ja. Dat je over je grens heen gaat. Is that you're crossing the boundaries of your own being, of your own knowing.
Yeah.
I think we do that a lot. And I feel like what I'm seeing and sensing with the shift also is that we need to step up and say yes and no to the things that are right for us, while we are conditioned in the process of planning to always be there for the other, to always be of service, and to set our own wishes, desires, or the things that we want to do, we set it aside for our tribe or for our community or for the people that we love. And I feel like this time is teaching us that it's okay to just say yes to you, and then whatever aligns with that. And who doesn't, if people gonna judge you for not getting the avocado and just say like, you're not my friend, why didn't you get the avocado? Then it's not your friend.
It's transactional.
Exactly. Which is the cross of planning. So it's so aligned what you were sharing with what is needed.
And I think too, we're in 7 planets are in retrograde right now. So maybe, this is the cosmos's way of helping us kick out some of these patterns of engagement that are not working for us.
Absolutely.
I look at retrogrades as like if you're riding a bike, right, and the chain goes like this, right? I look at retrogrades as pedaling backwards and just spitting out anything that got caught in the chain,
right,
that doesn't contribute to
moving forward,
easy flow of
right,
moving forward. So
right.
if you don't have anything stuck in the chain, there's nothing to pop out. So pedaling backwards is kind of fun.
Yeah.
There's nothing sticky. But when we have stuff stuck in the chain,
you can get stuck. Yeah,
it can be challenging. But yeah, I mean, I think it's true that this is 7 planets in retrograde. How often does that happen?
Not often. I believe we are in a time where a lot of planets, in which position they are, is very unique to our times. I don't know where I read it or I heard it, but I remember that these coming years, I believe it was Steve Judd that said that a lot of planets are going in certain positions these coming years that have never been there before.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fascinating and interesting, because it means we don't know. We don't know what that means. Like even the astrologers are a bit like, oh, we don't know, because there's nothing we can look back to. We can look in the past of what has happened when these planets were in a certain position, because we knew like when war comes, this planet and this planet is opposition or cross to that one. But now there are these positions that they haven't been there before. So that's very interesting. And also it reminds me of the nature of stars, which what was so fascinating to me was about new stars coming and stars dying, so that the program changes because certain stars are not giving off the program anymore, and new stars are giving a new program.
Right.
And I've been fascinated by
your service has been temporarily disconnected.
Whatever needs to be changed.
Because did it change?
No.
See, it doesn't change on your side.
No.
I get it. It changes on my side, but
right.
not your side.
Okay. Not on my side. No.
All right. Okay, I tried.
Probably I am on your other side while we are talking. So
yeah,
I'm looking to my left when I'm looking at you, and probably you are looking to your left to see me. Or not.
Yeah, but you know what, I like this because it normally I'm backwards in the video, and it always kind of distracts me that I'm
you're flipped.
Yeah, that I'm flipped, but now I'm in mirror, so for me it's nicer.
Okay.
I'll have to do that. I'll have to remember to do that, because I find it distracting. Oh, sorry. I find it distracting when I'm backwards.
I know. That's why when I'm recording myself, I also have mirrored my image, because that's the way I look at myself in the mirror. When I flip it, I don't recognize myself. Isn't that weird?
It's
It's so
my
weird.
hair's parted on the wrong side.
Right. I also have it when I look into the mirror and we're both looking in the mirror. His face is different to me than when I look at him in real time. How weird is that? Did you ever try
that? No, but I will try that.
Try that. See what you're gonna see. It's always fascinating to me, because then I see, like, Hans had a little accident when he was a little boy with his bike. So his cheek, like the handles of the bike came in his cheek. So his muscle in his cheek got torn, so to speak. So he has like a dimple here. For me, it's like a charm. But when he looks in the mirror and I look in the mirror, I see that his smile is crooked because of that muscle. But when I look at him in his face, I don't see that.
Interesting.
Weird.
That's so fascinating, because Trey also has a face thing. When he was a little boy, the neighbor's German Shepherd attacked him and put literally, like, the German Shepherd,
his whole face.
Yeah, and he has 2 scars here, and then 2 scars up in his head from where the dog bit him. So he has these 2 little scars on the side of his face, and I don't even see, like.
No, you don't see it. No. But maybe when you look in the mirror together, you are gonna see it. So
I'm gonna try that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try that. That's fascinating. Yeah, and it's so interesting because we're so rarely in the bathroom together, because Trey's like an early riser. I mean, some days he'll be awake, wide awake, on his own, no alarm, at 4 or 5 o'clock. And then he'll, have a cup of coffee and chill for a little while. But, a lot of times he's gone before 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. He's out the door. He just as soon go start working,
Right. And when you go to bed?
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to bed?
No, because, well, we're, because I'm a projector and it's important for me to sleep alone. We have different bedrooms, and sometimes he's tired at 8 o'clock or 8:30. And so he just goes to his room, and I'm kind of a night owl. I'm really paying attention to, my horizontal time before I go to bed. But I mean, sometimes we'll watch a movie or something together and we end at the same time. But usually when he comes home from work, we'll sit outside on the deck, or he'll work out in the garden for a little while, and then we'll eat together, kind of like you and Hans do.
Yeah.
Even if I've eaten early, I'll sit down with him.
Right. Yeah.
So we have that time over a meal. And then he'll say, let me go take my shower, because he'll fall asleep. He loves such a generator life, right?
Yeah.
Because he got up, he's busy. He sits down. He's out.
Yeah.
And so,
that's also fascinating to me, because I'm now sensing, is there a difference between a pure generator and a manifesting generator? Because I see the same with Hans. He's a pure generator. And when he comes home and we have dinner, then he sits on the couch and, sometimes when he comes home earlier, he sleeps before we eat. But I don't have that. It's an interesting thing to wonder, like, is there a difference between manifesting generators and generators?
I mean, now that you're saying that, I can see it. Elizabeth didn't go until she was exhausted and then sit down and then conk over, which I've read is what's,
generators
in alignment for a generator, and I, when I read that, I was like, oh my God, he's been living his design his whole life. Because, 40 something years. That's how, when he sat down, that was it. Yeah, but my Elizabeth doesn't do that. She's a manifesting generator. Tanner doesn't do that. He's a manifesting
Right. Yeah.
generator. Although Tanner, when Tanner's tired, but that's from when he was a baby, because when he was a baby, we didn't really stop our lives. We just kept doing whatever we would do. And at 8 o'clock, I would say to him, "It's time to go to bed. Put your head down." And if we were out, I would just lay him down with his head in my lap, and I'd rub his back, and he would, he'd go to sleep. It didn't matter what was going on around us. And so, Tanner has always been the kid who, if he's tired, he can sleep in whatever. And we attributed that to, us just bringing him wherever we went and
Right.
saying, "It's time to go to bed. It's 8 o'clock."
What a sweet boy.
Yeah. So if he's tired, he goes to sleep, but he's
Right.
also, being blind has its, when you're a total, like he is, you don't see the sun rising and setting.
So your body is taking in the energy of the sun differently, the light. Yeah. Oh, that's also fascinating. Like, does his skin sense the daily neutrinos? Because now that I'm sensing the neutrinos come during the day, which is the sun, and then when the world turns, yeah.
I noticed with him, he just goes. He just goes. And because he has no sense of time, if he's going and he's engrossed in something, he may work until 4 or 5 in the morning. And then he's like, "Oh my gosh, what time is it? Oh, it's 5 o'clock. I have a meeting at 7 o'clock." And then he'll lay down on the sofa, set his timer for 2 hours, and then, pop up for his meeting, and he seems to be fine. But, yeah. And then he might have another day where he's tired all day, and he sleeps. But he really goes until he's tired.
Right. Wow. Did you ever look at his chart to see, like, I don't know, maybe I'm going out there, but as human design and astrology tells a story about our life,
yeah,
do you feel like his blindness is in there, and that the gift of him, what I'm sensing now, he has this gift of timelessness, because he just does what he does when he can do it, and when he sleeps, and
it's interesting. A long time ago, I had done I'm opening my genetic matrix. Long time ago, I had gone to Kauai, and I was doing the acupresence workshop, which Alaya Denol's created. It's like acupuncture and gene keys. And I stayed with this man, and we were having a conversation. He was asking me about my kids and stuff, and I told him a bit about Tanner, and he says to me, "I bet your son has the 55 in his attractor sphere." And I was like, "Oh, let's look." And he did. And he related that to blindness.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was so powerful. There was a really big gene key community on Kauai where they like read the gene keys together weekly. There was a big study there. A lot of people. So he did have the 55 as his attractor sphere, and I don't remember what the guy's reasoning for correctly, accurately hypothesizing that. Tanner has he has the 3420, 3410.
You can share it. You can share screen if you want. 3029. Oh yeah. Yeah, he really gets his energy, from the 3420. It's like and because of the line too, like an unseen talent that he has. Like, he's just busy and not noticing that everybody is watching him doing it.
Yeah, and that's his son Earth is so
Yeah,
powerful, right?
absolutely. And it's fascinating that he also has that 4130 like you.
Yeah.
Personality. And having that 36. How does it
Well,
feel when you are with him? Because he also has that 36 and then bridges with your 35.
yep, and he has the 15 that bridges with my 5.
Right.
And uh yeah, I
And
mean,
18,
mhm,
bridging, yeah.
he is very easy generally for us to be around. I mean, we can talk about anything and everything, and we do. We might go weeks where we don't talk to each other, and then we'll talk for an unlimited amount of time, uh, and just be in timelessness together. Um, let I had this feeling that shifting to his gene keys. Can we just? I mean, I don't know why I'm hearing that. Well, we can see them both the way the new genetic matrix is. If I make that bigger, how does it appear? Is that better on your
Yeah,
screen?
it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got the 55.3,
Yeah.
which is my Chiron.
Yeah. And then having that 36 twice in his IQ and EQ.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a fascinating question for me because you are his mother.
Yeah.
And the IQ and the SQ is about his childhood. And then that 36.3 twice. Are you sensing anything when you go back as a mother, how you might have influenced him? Because that's what the Jinky says about this path. It's in where you were being conditioned to be different or to, yeah.
Talk to us about that condition to be different. To be different from his nature, or
Yeah. Or to be um hmm.
when Tanner was a child, it started about 3rd grade, 4th grade. Suddenly he's in this classroom in 4th grade, and I'm getting all these calls from this teacher and stuff, and about how Tanner's not paying attention. And I went to meet this woman, and I went in the classroom, and there was stuff everywhere. Like the walls were, it was so chaotic in my field. And I sat down at his desk and I was looking around this classroom, and I was like, ugh, like it made me feel itchy in my skin, right? And there was this one thing that this teacher was doing. She had this activity where it was like a worksheet, and the kids had to put the words in order somehow. I can't remember exactly how it worked, but if you got the first word wrong, the whole thing was wrong. And so all the kids he had been in school with had learned to do this particular kind of worksheet from the time they were in kindergarten. It was a thing at that school. but we had moved there and he didn't have any experience with that.
Right.
You know, the experience that the other kids had. He didn't quite understand it. So he was getting all of this worksheet wrong. And I didn't understand the worksheet. Like, I'm looking at it, I'm working on a master's degree in literature, English, and I don't get the worksheet. It took me a while to comprehend. And I'm
Right.
sitting in his little desk, and I remember thinking, I can't focus in here. And I felt like it was just so much stuff. And the woman had her doctorate, so she knew what she was really old, and she was really fixed in her way of thinking and being. It was a really rough year for Tanner. This woman was not kind to him, and I couldn't get him changed. But then the next year, he had this teacher who really was life-changing for him, because she had the awareness that he had a lot of capacity for doing things, working things out in his head. And so she invited him to be a member of the mental math club. And in this club, they did all the math in their head. And he was brilliant at it. And so fast. And because his brain, like, works really fast. And he was so good at it that he even created a rule because she kept asking him, how did you do that? And he'd say, well, I did this. And how'd you do that? And he did this. And it was a pattern. And he taught the other kids how to do it, and it became Tanner's rule.
Right.
And it was a mental math trip, right? And that training, and I think he was in that club 1 or 2 years, and that training really was invaluable, like when he became blind, because he had practice at figuring things out just in his head, inside his mind and stuff. So yeah, so that line 3 of the flexible mind, and even when Tanner was a little boy, he was a kid who liked all the girls. Tall girls, short girls, big girls, thin girls, buxom girls, white girls, black girls, brown girls, yellow girls, like, he liked all the girls.
All the girls, yeah.
By the time he was like a little boy, everything was beautiful. And then in high school, one of his friends said to his mother, I'd just like to live a day in Tanner's world where everything is good and all the girls are pretty.
Yeah.
And so from the time he was a little boy, I could see how he really communed with people at their
humanity,
inner beauty, because he really, even as a child, saw beyond what was this physical suit, this fleshy suit we wear around. He really communed with people at the truth of who they were.
Yeah.
So I feel like there were times the school tried to condition him, but I don't know. I'm sure I conditioned him in some things to be polite, but I also think that maybe it was because I was a projector mom of a manifesting generator and a generator. Like, I didn't have the energy to do things around the house. Like, when they were in 8th grade, I taught them how to do their laundry. We had a lesson, like, go get all your jeans, put them in together. This is how much soap. And I showed them one time, and I was like, okay, you're in charge now.
Right.
You want some clothes? The machine is right here. Watch whatever you want. And I remember Tanner was like a toddler, maybe 18 months, and he would walk over to the refrigerator, open the door, get the gallon of milk out, drink, put the milk back up. You know, he was strong enough to pull a gallon of milk. And I would just laugh. People would say, "Are you going to let him do that?" I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
sure." You
Well,
know, so
yeah.
I think I empowered them because I didn't have
Yeah.
the energy to do it all for
Yeah.
them. You know,
No.
like,
Yeah, to be honest, I think I was projecting, like asking you as a parent that if you conditioned him, but I guess I was projecting my conditioning from my parents. And when you just explained this story from him when he was a little boy in school, I felt that 36. And I feel like what I forgot was we can be conditioned in any way possible. It's not just our parents,
yeah.
but that was the first thing that came to my mind because I feel that I was conditioned by that. But it opened a whole box for me, like, oh yeah. So when you were sharing about his school, I was seeing my experiences as a child in school and how much conditioning happens there. And I love what you shared about, yeah, explaining that flexible mind and how it supports him, and then also how he looks at people. That 36 is, the humanity, it's being human. And it's almost like he is seeing without eyes now, but he's seeing the people for being human, like for the value that they are. I loved it.
Totally, totally,
Yeah.
totally. And
Thank you for sharing.
yeah, I mean, when you asked the question, that's what I was seeing in my inner vision. I was
Yeah.
seeing that teacher because she was older. She looked 70. I don't know how old she was. I know she'd been teaching in 30, like 30 something years. You know, she was older. Um, and she had flaming red hair. And I saw her, and then I was like, I remembered sitting in the classroom and feeling,
Yeah.
itchy. And yeah, and then seeing him with all the little girls
Yeah.
and all the different little girlfriends, he
Yeah.
had as a young boy. And I was just seeing all this stuff. It's interesting because when he was home, I had this awareness of he did things, we call it Tanner time. He does things in his own time. He did things in his own time. So, like I might have wanted, Trey worked away a lot and I didn't worry about the house and stuff, but their dad liked the house all neat and picked up. So I wasn't going to harp on them for 2 weeks or 3 weeks while their dad was gone. But the day before their dad would come back, or the Sunday before when their dad
Right.
would come back, I'd be like, "Dad's coming home on this day. You got to get this."
Right. Jump, jump. Go do it.
Like, I would set a timer and I'd say, "Okay, let's see if we can do it in 30 minutes."
Right.
And then so I just tried to use because it was pointless to force him to do something. What difference did it make to me that he was in that deep? I mean, he could just go into these deep places of his mind, and back in I mean, my kids are 39 and 40. So we didn't have, I mean, when they were maybe in elementary school, video games are coming out, but they haven't had technology from the time they were born, and yeah, sure, they had their little Nintendo game, but they also played sports every day. They were on, they played sports year round. So when they came home from school, they did their homework, and then I'd say, "Go outside and play." So they would go outside and play, like, and I didn't have to worry about, they went outside and played, and 2 hours later they'd come back, and then we'd eat supper, and then maybe they wanted to play video games. But on the weekend, if they wanted to play their video game, I'd let them, because they had worked all week.
Right.
They went to their games on Saturday. They were constantly active. So what, because I needed some downtime,
Yeah. Well, I'm
right?
sensing your open sacral center in here, the wisdom in that. You knew how it would feel like if you would have spent all that energy. So you understood your children, like, let's give them some rest in the weekend. They did so well. Yeah.
Yeah. So um he is, that 29 in his evolution. Man, if he commits to something,
Yeah.
and then, the other thing that pops up is the open ego, completely open ego, not undefined,
Yeah.
but
I saw
open.
that too. Absolutely nothing to prove. Absolutely
No,
nothing. And he
he
doesn't
beats
even
his
know what
own
it
way.
is to try to prove your self-worth. Can you relate to that when you think of him? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I read early on in my journey, I had read something by Raw that was like a lot of athletes have completely open will centers.
Okay.
And that made sense to me because he's been an athlete his whole life. I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
And
I relate that to that channel because the people I know with that channel 3420 and then with the 10, it's like the energy to express yourself in the now constantly and knowing your direction in that. So, and then having that focus and concentration to do so. Yeah.
and I love that his pearl, and I feel like it is so spot on, determination and invincibility, because I mean losing your vision
Yeah.
and still he lost his vision when he was 21, and it takes um determination.
Absolutely.
Everything just, maybe it's different if you're born blind. I don't know. I can't
I
say for
think so.
sure. But
Yeah.
when you lose your vision completely, um and you have to learn everything
Everything.
again,
Yeah.
everything, it takes determination.
Absolutely. And he has it in his SQ as well. That line 1. Yeah. It's like really, really knowing how to stay with it, with the focus and the concentration, that determination to go on is what I'm sensing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
uh he does have certainty, like there's things that he just knows. Yeah.
Yeah. And don't forget that channel, the 27. I can't read what that number is. I don't know by head what it is, but it's
Wait, I'll
the
go back.
yeah. Um, I always say that the 59:6 is about making babies, and the 50:27 is about nourishing the children, is nourishing your tribe, your people. It's like you really want to take care of those in your surroundings, in your environment, in your family.
Yeah, that's true. And then he has the 27.1 is his moon. So this is something that's driving him
Yeah.
daily, monthly. And then with that line 1, um, the rave line companion has helped me understand how much the line 1 is the purity of consciousness for that
Yeah.
um
It's the
gate.
absolute foundation of what the gate is about. Yeah.
He's got, I mean, look, uh north node, south node, moon, uh Venus, design Venus, uh personality, uh Neptune. He's got line ones in some really big places.
Yeah.
The 10 of the 1034. Certainly the 27 of the 2750. So yeah, I think that's and it's interesting, you know, he has outer vision, so that left facing arrow of cognition on inner vision.
Yeah.
He has artificial shores, which is that left facing arrow of the shores on the right arrow, or no, he's the left on the
Personality.
I'm natural, he's artificial.
Yeah.
He's observer. I think I'm observed.
I believe you are observer too, and I am being observed.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So, you know, we have a lot of, he and I have a lot of foundational, you know, digits that are similar.
Yeah.
Color, tone.
And his trajectory, separatist.
I
That
don't
stands
really
out to me.
know about that one. What can you share about separatist?
I don't know in detail, but what I'm sensing when it popped out for me was his path with his blindness. It's that separate path, like really being alone and not alone. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, it really feels like he's on a path that is very his own, so to speak. I know he's left angle, which means that it has to do with karma, and everybody you meet, there is some karma. It could be in the grocery store that you just, you know, bump into somebody and that the karma is resolved or not. I don't know. Yeah, so for me, yeah, even with that left angle and that separatist, it really feels like he is on his own path and resolving the karma in his own way. But I don't know the details of separatist, but that's what stood out for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had done some work on his chart a long time ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and he's a 6'2". So, you know, he's here to be a leader and for people to see that. And I can't remember if it was something Richard wrote or something Raw wrote. And it had something to do with, imagine that his influence happens over time, that like the water over the rock, you know, and it wears down and it wears down, and day to day you don't really see that, where the water is eroding the rock, but then all of a sudden the rocks crumble, and he's been the water over time, you know, crumbling a system that isn't working to create the something new. And I remember when I had researched, I was researching something for him in his chart, and I came to that, and I said to him, you know, in part, a lot of it is what he does for his business is, he does digital accessibility, and it's, you know, there's a lot in the United States, there are a lot of laws that are intended to make things equal for people with disabilities. But new technology is one of the big things that is not accessible. So think about, it's great for everyone who's sighted to have a touch screen and
Right,
just
but not
touch,
for him.
but for blind people, that
Right.
is not accessible.
No.
And so his big thing, I feel like, is that he's making the world accessible to people it's not been accessible to. And so he's like the water over the rock of
Right.
inaccessibility, and
Yeah.
it's, people who can see don't really understand the challenge of not being able to access what's inaccessible.
No. No,
And so
everything is so
bringing
normal
that.
for us, you know.
Mhm.
Like even this, like go on a Zoom. How is that for your son? You know, you're not
It's
able to see
hard.
yourself on camera. You're not able to see the other person. So would he even do a Zoom? You know?
Yeah, he does Zoom all the time, but he has his camera off
Okay.
because he can't see.
Yeah, but for me, if I would have a chat with him, I would love to see him, to be honest.
And if you said that to him, depending on where he is in his knowing, he might be,
Right.
oh yeah, sure. But then
Okay.
he might call you out on it
Okay.
and say, oh, wouldn't that be great for you to be able to see me and I can't see you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So with me blocking my screen, we are equals,
Right. Mm-hmm.
you know? So
Mm.
I've seen him be
Interesting.
in
Yeah.
both places. And I
Right.
think he uses his vessel as a way to go, oh yeah, this is a, yeah, and also no. And another
Mm.
thing is that he has from his accident, he's um his eye, the tree impaled him, so he's had to have a new, he has an eyebrow implant, he has a cheek implant, they had to skin graft to make an eyelid, his eye doesn't completely close, and he doesn't
Mhm.
have an eyeball.
Mhm.
So and there's a lot of scarring. So you know, when you're meeting somebody new for the first time and
Yeah.
they're looking at you and you're not, when he wears an
Right.
eye patch, it kind of covers the
Right.
whole injury,
Mhm.
but um, people judge on
Yeah.
looks,
Yeah. True. True.
and so there's a lot involved with that.
Right. Well, it's good of you to share because you're making me aware, and I don't know why, but I'm getting emotional because we don't have a clue how it feels to have an imperfection. We talk about our weight, but what's weight? If you're missing your sight and you have an eye that everybody looks at like, oh, what do you have? What happened? Have a saying about it and not have like we have an immediate acceptance if I see your face. But like you said, he doesn't know how people respond to him. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, some people, it's like anything. Imagine you're walking around and you see somebody disfigured. It's a
Yeah.
natural thing to look like, oh, what happened? Whether
Right.
you're judging or not judging, there's a
There's always a
curiosity.
response. That's the truth. Yeah.
One of these things doesn't look like the other. What is it? What's
Right.
wrong?
Right.
How is it different? We ask all those questions. And some people are just turned out off, like right away because it's different from them.
Right.
And when you're in business, that's,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
anyway, let's
Yeah.
talk about you. What's going on?
Oh, well, I just wanted to share that I don't know why, but I've lately been watching videos on anything that is happening in the world, but also about people that had an accident. And that immediately came to mind was I saw a girl who at 17 or so accidentally shot a gun and she blew off the front of her face, but it didn't hit her brain. So she lost her face, and they did a reconstruction, like an organ face, I think 5-6 years later. So she regained a new face. But I saw her pictures before, like it was a very, very pretty girl. And then to lose your face, like, I'm in awe with people that still feel, she says she's got a second chance at life, you know?
Right.
And that's what I'm sensing with your son as well. Like, he lost his sight, but he didn't sit with that. He felt like he still have a chance at life, and he's doing everything that he possibly can do.
I mean, there were, at the
Respect.
beginning, he thought his life was over.
Right.
But, you know, the big thing for him was getting back into sport, seeing that he could play sports because he was always such an athlete. Finding beat baseball was his big turning point. Once he found a way in, he was unstoppable. Yeah. But, you know, thinking about that girl and her attitude of, I have a second chance at life. And there are going to be people she meets along the way who see that she's different.
Absolutely.
And face her and receive her in the truth of who she is, not judge her by her looks. And there are going to be other people she encounters who are going to judge her by her looks. I would love to see her chart to see, you know, what her profile is and stuff, because maybe like Tanner, she's here to, you know,
demonstrate that, to role model that. Yeah.
You know, what's interesting was after Tanner's surgery, and when he was finally able to walk, and we would go out, it took, he and I talked about this all the time, at the time, during the time, but it took 3 months before somebody spoke to him directly. Because we would go to the grocery store, I'd take him to the movie, you know, everywhere I went. And we would engage restaurants, waiters and waitresses would look at Trey and I to ask for his order. You know, he might be in front of the basket, the grocery cart, you know, and I'd be behind taking the stuff out. And you know, so then in the States we have people who bag groceries, right? So they're at the end. And so it took 3 months, and it was a bag checker, you know, person who bagged groceries at the grocery store, who finally spoke to him and said, paper or plastic, to him. And I think that it was a kid, and I think he said, "Oh, sir, would you like paper or plastic?" And it took Tanner a minute to realize somebody was actually speaking to him. But what people did do in that 3 months, a lot of children, they would say, you know, they're a foot, 2 feet, 3 feet away from Tanner, and they would say, "Mom, what's wrong with that monster?" Or, you know, like really kind of horrible things. It was hard, you know, and I'd be like, really? Seriously?
Yeah. I even wonder then, what kind of parents, what kind of upbringing are these parents giving a child that is saying that?
And they wouldn't say things like, that's not appropriate, or we don't talk about people like that. They wouldn't shush them or teach them. It was mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
Mind-blowing. I mean, a lot of times I had real patience, but sometimes I would, you know, it would be so much. I would just look at the child and say, he had an accident. Would you like to look and see his scar? because sometimes people have accidents and they have scars. And they would look at me with real big eyes, like, oh,
Yeah.
And sometimes parents would be really kind, and other times they would look at me like,
Are you crazy?
and I would think to myself, you started this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You're
You
just
invited me to
aggressive.
respond. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I'm feeling that 36 here because we're speaking on humanity and the way we people respond to each other, to what is different. And I have been bullied a lot in every grade, like
Wow.
until I was 17 and almost 18, and I got my last degree to finally go into the world and get a job and be rid of all those kids. and they even beat me on the school because, like I shared before, like I was fat, dumb, and ugly. Is that what the kids thought? I was
That's
bullied because I was different. I can see now that I was different because I feel like I was being more me than other kids. I don't know how I can explain that, but I feel my IQ is the 40.1, which is the contemplative mind. And I was always thinking and always, I'm thinking of my color 3, like exploring and decoding the matrix. So I was different than other kids. Other kids were busy with other things than I was busy with. But what I'm getting at is that I still don't understand when I see bullying. It hurts my feelings because I feel like, why? Why do we keep judging other people for just being them, or just feel what they have been through, or really be in case of your son, like I would love to get to know him when I would have met him. Of course I would like to hear his story, but the intent behind the question then is so different. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Yeah, it still gets me emotional when I hear stories like these, and when I see it happen outside. I even yeah, go ahead.
There was one time Tanner was probably in his, I would say it's in the last 10 years, so around 30-ish, maybe a little, older than that. He lives in Phoenix, but at that time he lived in an apartment in Phoenix, in a really nice area of Phoenix. And he was walking to the bus stop or something. So he's on his route, he knows where he's going, and he has his dog, AJ, and his cane. And there's a man behind him. He could hear the man behind him. And the man was saying things. And Tanner turned around and goes, "Are you talking to me?" And then he would go dead silent. And people, I don't know what people think. Do they think if you just don't talk, the blind person, you disappear to the blind person? Tanner could hear him breathing, like he knew he was right there. He waited. The guy would just, it was like that game kids play as kids, red light, green light, and you have to freeze.
Right. Yeah.
Pros, So then Tanner starts walking again. He does the same thing. Tanner turns around. "Seriously, dude, if you want to talk to me, just talk to me." Silence and stillness. So then Tanner gets to the corner or something, and finally he turns around and he has a conversation with the man. He's like, "Look, dude, if you want to ask me something, just ask me. This is inappropriate. You think being still and quiet, I don't know, you're right there. You're right there. And Tanner has amazing spatial awareness." Right. And then the guy talked to him, but I'm like, this is an adult to another adult.
Yeah.
it to me, it's just mind blowing, you know.
Yeah.
Or when Tanner was in college, you know, imagine a college campus. There are buildings everywhere, there's sidewalks everywhere, there's doors, there's people walking, it's a lot. So he would learn his routes to his new buildings. He had a coach who would get his schedule and find the routes that, you know, to get him from class to class, that he would learn those routes. Okay. So, and he had his dog, so he would go, you know, and then, but I mean, how often is there construction? A sidewalk is torn up, a tree is being worked on, the route gets blocked.
Right.
So he would be on his way. He had no warning that, you know, a whole pathway would be barricaded. Okay, well, then how did, you know, this was before we had, say, GPS that, you know, now he could get a walking instruction. So he would not know, like, how big is this barrier? You know, like, how do I navigate? You know, where do I go? You know, and so he would stop and say, hey, can some, you know, because he can hear people walking around, it's a college campus. He'd say, hey, can somebody help me? Hey, can somebody help me? People just,
they wouldn't help him.
Yeah. It would be a real challenge. Yeah. I mean,
how much determination does a person need to get through that? Wow.
Right. And so then we can look at it from that point of view, right? Like, that's his gate, right? And so how do you learn determination? You get a lot of opportunities to try.
Right. You know, and that immediately popped in my head what I learned this week by watching a video again is they had this environment, word for it, some scientists is
researchers,
yeah, and in which they grew plants and trees. But what they've noticed is that the trees didn't grow, they stayed small. So the outcome of this experiment was that if trees don't get wind from the outside, they don't grow to be tall and strong.
Because there's no wind
there's no turbulence. The 36, there's no turbulence. And without turbulence, without wind, there is no growth. So without adversity, we don't grow as a human being or as a soul. Or so your son has a lot of challenges in his chart, and he's doing it very well.
Right. You know, I mean, sometimes he's a champ, and other times he falls down, and then he picks himself up and he keeps going, you know.
Yeah. But that's the 6 line process also. It's that phase of the first 30 years, you know, that third line phase. And then he's almost up on the roof, right? He's 40 now, so he's going up the roof. Yeah.
So what do you think, what was your fascination or your attention? Why do you think your attention this recent time has been drawn to this kind of video?
Ooh, that's a good question. Maybe because I want to know more about human suffering. True suffering, because I do notice that some people that are no longer in suffering are holding on to the suffering and not growing from it. And when I watch these videos of people that went through true suffering and how they came out, it's so empowering. It makes me feel small, even. Like when I saw that girl that lost her face, it diminishes all the things that I ever struggled with. and it's not for me to feel better, but it's to notice that maybe the good answer is that I feel like we are talking about consciousness and being aware in your life, but we are at a point that we have it fairly easy in our lives, right? We have everything in order. We have our income. We have our house. Our children are grown. And we have a quite abundant life, right? And so for us, it's very easy to be with spiritual practices, do all this research about ourselves and how the world works. But for people like that, is there space to become more conscious and aware and to develop in the way that we are developing? Because, you know, our world is about, well, enlightenment is not the right word, but we are working on living our highest vibrations, our highest potential and everything. But sometimes I feel like that's only possible because we live in abundance, the two of us. You know, is it possible for people that live in less places, because I've watched the pandemic of drug abuse in America as well.
Yeah.
And it's horrifying what I've seen. It, like, again, it gives me chills, and again I'm feeling the emotions. Like, how is that possible that these people, that their only way out was to keep using drugs while they're very aware of what it's doing to their bodies? Because I've watched like interviews with those people, and they say like, I'm going to die, but I don't know how to get out because this has been my life. And they even went into rehab, and there are some places where they can get rid of the addiction and then maybe get a home and live on their own. But they go back to the streets because that's the only thing they know.
It's the pattern.
Yeah. And maybe I don't have an answer to how to resolve this, but I do see what's out there. Like, I don't know why I'm drawn to these videos, but I need to be aware of this.
I feel like perhaps, again, this is about the 36.
Yeah, humanity. Yeah. Maybe it is very, very, very insightful of you. Yeah.
But also, there's something, I feel like this kind of interesting triangle in your chart between the 36, the 22, and the 31. So attractor, evolution, vocation, kind of
You can share screen if that makes it easier.
Yeah, sure. We have the whole thing. Can you see the whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing like this triangle between your attractor sphere, your evolution, your vocation, attractor sphere, evolution, vocation, that 36 and the 22 and the 31. I mean, because for me, with the 36, with all that, humanity and how do we learn compassion is through suffering, right? Whether it's your own or not. I think one of the things from listening to that Matt Reese video over and over on color tone,
right?
A lot of what I'm getting is sometimes we're designed, depending on what the color tone or base is, we're designed to be in it, or sometimes in the matrix of it, in
Right.
the truth of it, and sometimes we're meant to experience it kind of peripheral, like it's around us.
Right.
It's not, us to, so when you were
For sure.
talking, I was like, oh, I bet that's like her 36, and she's getting it from this kind of peripheral
You.
experience, right?
Yeah.
And then I don't know, my consciousness brought me to the 22, and I was like, oh, I wonder how the 22 is working with her 36 right now. Both line fours, both about you know, connection with other people and being involved with other people. But for me, well, let me ask it as a question. How do you see in this the potential between the 36 and the 22 kind of working together?
Mm. Well, I always come back to the story of the grace with Jesus on the cross, like, God, why have you forsaken me? And then the knowing that he has it, God has not forsaken him. And I'm not religious, but I do feel the grace in life of being human is to go through all these challenges. Like I said with the tree, in order for us to grow as a soul, we need to know what life is all about. Even what we as people are doing to other people. Like, how can we, I'm feeling my 2.3 here. How can we be in unity with all, as when we're seeing each other as opposites? I know we live in a world of duality and we cannot escape it. But when we go to the source of everything, we all come from this crystal bundle and we're all one, But in order to really understand the other, I think we have to feel what it is to be human. And because I have experience, and your son might have that as well, when you have experienced the challenges of being human, that's the only way you can feel compassion for the other when they are sharing their story, because you have been through it yourself. I have even experienced in my previous work that there was no understanding, there was no compassion for what I was going through. But also the other way around. I never had a burnout. So when I had a colleague in that time that had a burnout, I was like, she's faking it. She doesn't want to work. And da, 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 da. I had all these images until I got in a burnout. And I went like, ooh, I should apologize to her, because now I know what she has been through. And I felt even ashamed of guilting her or shaming her that, that I was feeling that she was lying and that it wasn't true what she was saying. And yeah. And that's when the grace steps in.
And then that makes the perfect tie to the leadership and humility of your vocation.
Yeah.
Because it takes a real leader to be able to go, oh, I'm sorry.
True. I know I would now be so different in my leadership when I was, giving guidance at my job. And yeah, I guess I feel like my line one has had a lot of investigations in retrograde, maybe my 33 steps in here, retreat, because it was only when I was in my burnout until, still, because it's been 4 or 5 years now, that I was able to look back on what has happened and where I was wrong.
Mm.
And that's why I feel very blessed and grateful that I had the opportunity to get a burnout and then had the opportunity to stay in my home and start doing the things that I love doing. And now we are here with human design and the Gene Keys and awareness. but still having that human experience, until I was 42. Yeah. Yeah. And I even feel now that 31 with the 47, I sometimes say with people that are staying in that victimhood of the 55 that we've spoken about in other calls,
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes for me maybe easy to say that it's sometimes about mindset and that you have to change the way you perceive things and how you look at things in your life. But by watching these videos of those people suffering, like with losing your face or struggling with addiction, and there's seems to be no way out, it's so easy for me to say, well, it's just mindset, it's just about how you perceive things. I feel arrogant in that when I sometimes say that, because sometimes it's true, but sometimes it's not, because I don't even have an answer for these people how to cope with certain things.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking about how important design is, and uh, you get it through videos, I get it through reading, but I'm thinking of 3 novels that I've read in the last month about characters who, um, you know, uh, a son born to an orphan mom who's a teenage mother. So a mother who has nobody,
Right.
who's a child, who's addicted, who's giving birth, doing the best she can. But what are the chances for a child born into this kind of realm?
Right.
And then the mother dying and being in the system and nobody really wanting him in the system. And even the workers in the system just checking boxes
Right.
because they're exhausted.
Yeah.
So it's like the level of survival and the layers of just survival.
Right. Yeah.
And that life is not wrong. Those people are, that's their design. That's what they're here to explore. And
Yeah. Well, that's what I sometimes feel like. Sometimes I feel like I see it all, how the program works. And then sometimes I'm being thrown back, like you shared with this child that's being born in this specific setting of life. Even with Sinead O'Connor, I watched a video about her mother, how she was abused and everything. And she still had this whole struggle with loving her mother while she was so abused by her mother. And I felt like, okay, so wow, how I was wondering, what is her design? How can we relate how certain people are being born in certain settings? Why am I being so privileged to be born in this country with these parents, and now having this, for me, perfect life?
I talked to one of my clients about this. I have a client who has so many graces in life, so many, so much privilege, right? And yet, huge amount of humility and grace. And she was contemplating, what right do I have to this? I've done nothing, right?
Right.
It was just circumstances I've been born into. And the way I related it to her was like, you're on a waveform. And you understand the high of your waveform. And you're living the high of your waveform, right? But look around you, there are people with more privilege whose waveforms go.
True. Yeah.
And there are people who are on different waveforms than you. True. And we were all designed for the waveform that we're on.
Right.
Doesn't make our waveform right or wrong. It's just the waveform we're on, right?
True. Yeah.
No matter where you are. In this one story, I'm thinking about, it's a Barbara Kingsolver novel, Damon something, I can't remember, it's like the character's name. He's the kid who's born of this mother who dies, and he's like 10 or 11, and his foster family is taking him in because they're in survival mode and just trying to get money any way they can, so they get money for him, right? But none of that money can go to him, it goes to them, right? So then the foster father farms him out to a job at 11, and they pay him cash $4 an hour, and then the foster family takes the money, and the foster father says to him, well, yeah, that money's for your bed, and he's on a blow-up mattress, like on a porch, and he goes, you need to bring some money in for your food. And then they take that, and the benefit is that he gets to eat in this, he works behind this kind of like convenience store, but there's an Indian man who owns the convenience store, and he's like, oh, I have to throw all the food out each day, whatever's cooking, so you can come in and eat. So he's thrilled because he gets to eat. But as he's sitting there at the end of the day eating this food that would otherwise be tossed out, the Indian man, one of the businesses that he runs is like a garbage collection service for people in the area. So they come and they throw their garbage, and the kid is a kid amongst others who sorts the garbage, because what they do is they find what's really garbage, but then they find other stuff that can be recycled and get money for, different kinds of recycling. So then they sort other people's garbage into things that can be sold in other ways to generate more money. And then as he eats at night, the Indian man talks to him about having been born in the dump and living his whole life in the dump. So there he is at 11 thinking that, he's, how hard his life is, but he listens to this man who's born in a dump and has somehow risen up out of the dump of living in a dump and owns a store and takes his wisdom of recycling into another business in America, right?
Right.
So, that's to what I said to my client, it's like, you're just on a waveform, and there are waveforms that go higher than yours, and there are waveforms that go lower than yours, but they're all waveforms, and they're all people's lives.
True. Yeah, sometimes I get lost in it, and when I zoom out again, I can be at that point what you are saying, like it's all in the program, so it all happens for a reason. And if I dare to say it, maybe we are looking at it now as suffering and feeling like this is not fair. But maybe, like the boy, if you are placed in that environment, it's a huge opportunity to grow. You know what I mean? It's again, like the tree, there's so much wind, he has to grow tall and become strong or die. Maybe that is the opportunity. And some of us get there and some of us don't and get to retry when we reincarnate?
Well, yeah, and also like I'm the right angle cross of consciousness 4. I'm here to, be a genius about consciousness, right? So it's no wonder that I am able to say to my client, "Well, you're just a waveform," and then it's like being in the mountains. Look to the left, there's a bunch of mountains. Look to the right, there's a bunch of mountains. You're just on a mountain,
Right.
It's just a mountain, like I'm here, and like we all have our cross of consciousness, right? And so we're gonna perceive what we perceive because of how we're designed.
Right.
How can I, like I'm sure I can see other perspectives because, well, with my base 2, what else is possible beyond what we can imagine, right? But even that's about consciousness, right?
Right. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that back.
Well, I think it's fascinating, and maybe my consciousness is there because I was re-listening to that Matt Reese video, and he starts doing I'm just at the beginning where he's looking at people's charts, and he starts talking about a chart by one that he had done a reading for, who had 12 line 6s in her chart, and how she invigorated, how people found her invigorating to be around, and how like she wasn't intending to do that, she's just vibrating that.
Right.
I have 6 line 6s, that really resonated with me. But if you have like 6 line 1s, 9 line 1s, 12 line 1s, what is your life going to be like?
Right. True.
10 line 3s, 6 line 3s.
I believe I have more third lines than the rest.
Right? Like, and that's probably why you can experiment. So, like you're so okay with the experiment. You're so okay. Like we plan to talk because I'm getting ready to go out of town for a while, and it was a perfect opportunity before I leave. And I was like, I wonder what we're going to talk about today. And like I had no idea, where our travels would take us. But that's you with all those line 3s. It's like
yeah, true. Yeah.
let's see what it takes us. And of course, me with my writing across the consciousness form, like, yeah, let's sit on the shore with what's gonna float.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It has been a fascinating conversation. First of all, with you working at Trey's store. And I didn't share that before, but I even said to Hans on the balcony this evening, like, what kind of store do you think I'm going to open one day? And he said, are you going to open a store? I said, well, I'm sensing that at some point I am going to open up my own store, but what am I selling? So we were just, kind of thinking about that. And I don't have an answer yet. I have ideas, but yeah, nothing concrete. But something inside of me still says there is this building or, house or whatever, and I'm going to do something in there. And then first, of course, I'm thinking about a store. So when you were talking about it, I was seeing myself again with the decorating and everything and the styling. And I did all of that. And I love doing that. So
I mean, you love making things beautiful, and you have such a knack for it,
yeah. So
and then I'm thinking, okay, what's our environment? Because we want the store to be in a perfect environment.
Right. Well, I was even sensing, like, when you were sharing, like, oh, maybe I should live with Simone for a while and work at the store over there,
Yeah, come. I mean, it's a true experience. Like, it's so funny because, Trey, one of the things that is the most attractive about Trey to me is his sense of humor. He is, to me, I don't know what other people think, but to me, he is really funny. And part of his sense of humor is that, you know, when you work with the public in a store, people say, like, you know, like, I love hearing about his day because you never know what somebody is going to say to you. And he comes home and he'll tell me, you know, but when he's been like really busy, so right now he has been really pushing himself. And, you know, he's 67. He is a stud.
He doesn't look like 67.
Oh, and I mean, he has the energy of a 35-year-old. He is just, you know, like the Energizer Bunny. But, you know, it's starting to like, you know, his battery has gone down just a little, and it's still, you know. And so what I notice is when he is tired, or he's, you know, working really hard, he's tired, it gets short with customers.
Really?
Because he doesn't have the patience, and you know, the level of it. And what's really funny about Trey is that, you know, he has this dog Astro, who is his child. This is his late in life child. This is not a dog. It's late. He adores his Astro, you know, who goes to work with him every day.
That's
I mean,
true.
they are around each other. You know, it's really like his, you know, his child. And there are funny things, like Astro has this bed, this dog bed that we got, you know, when he was a puppy, because he was only supposed to be 20, 22 pounds. He's like 35, 36 pounds. What I call extra. he's the extra mini.
Right.
And he loves his little bed, and he walls himself up into, he will curl himself up
to fit him, yeah.
It's a toy for him. So then he'll, like, if there's somebody in the store he really likes, he'll pick up his bed and he brings it to him, and it's like, you know, like, because he's huge, he's got this little bitty bed. And so, you know, some people go, you can buy him a new bed. It's tired, like, he's not, you know, normally he can let a lot of, you know, his comebacks are funny, what he says to people, but at home I get what he actually says and what he
says. Yeah, because you know him so well, right?
Yeah. And you know, if somebody says something judgmental about Astro, like in any way, or just that he perceives it's judgmental and he's tired, oh my God, it's hysterical. It's hysterical. So, you know, there's that. I mean, I think it would be good for you to come and visit and go and work in the store so you can get a feel for what it's like.
Absolutely.
To, you know, be with the general public day in, day out, because it is definitely a line 3 experience. And then you know, like Elizabeth, who is a 6'3", she has a completely different experience because she's hot, you know, so she has extreme focus. She's got that left arrow of digestion, and you know, she's all about being present with people and focused one-on-one. And you know, she's not here to sell stuff. She's here to have these deep, meaningful relationships with people and to share her light with the world. And so, but the store is a perfect place to do that, right? Because our little town, you know, we have locals who shop, but we have people from all over the United States who come.
That's interesting, right? To have conversations with these people. Yeah.
And what we talk about is that I know she's just shining her light, and people are walking down this narrow valley, and they're like, oh, what's over there? Right. And then they come in, and then she has these deep, meaningful conversations with people. And she's made so many friends because the locals will come in and they're talking to her because they have a great day and they want to share it with somebody, and they want to share it with her and her light, or they're struggling with something, or they're having a sad day. And then they come downtown and they, they're going to talk to Elizabeth and Panda because they need somebody to be really focused and present with them.
Right.
So she's living out her 6-3 life, through that in the store in a whole different way.
Right.
People aren't coming to chit chat with Trey. He's not a chit chatter.
No.
Really.
No.
He's being a leader on how you make your house pretty.
Right.
He's there to inspire through his creativity, through all the things that he displays and does.
Right.
And people come in, those people are coming in to be awed and inspired and catalyzed through his leadership of design. But he's not there to chit chat, but he's funny as hell.